This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, True Seekers and True Crime Junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Happy New Year to everyone out there. It is 2025, and I'm excited to say that we have Harriet Suchet back with us on the show today. Let's welcome her.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. It's going to be a great show.
Good morning. Yes, it is. Well, topping the news and research today is that Jimmy Carter dies at age 100 on December 29th of 2024. Now about fell out of my chair because we know that Harriet has that solved that says once Carter passes, the information about the Zodiac is supposed to come out. Do you still think that'll happen?
Guess what? They happened yesterday. All this Nazi stuff, which includes the people that may have been helping people in the United States, they somewhere in Europe had freed up all that information from the 1940s still. So I was like, oh my God, it's starting.
So you discovered something as early as 1942, was it? You were saying?
Yeah. Okay, to make a long story short, which I can have quite a few, I'm in the hospital and they gave me some extra stuff that I normally don't take. I had coffee in the afternoon, so I'm effing up for about 25 hours. Pain-free, but
good
sleep-free.
Drugs.
And I'm channel surfing, and then I see this Legend of Curly's Gold stuff, secret stuff, and here's a cryptic letter from such and such. I'm seeing yours truly at the bottom, Jack, capital S-O-N, and dear friend. And I said, holy crap, I know this system. That's
now tell me what that system is again. You stated that it was tell me what that system was again.
This is stenographic code for sure, and this is very early Zodiac code. And it's the Holy Grail. It's saying that something failed, and this whole mystery letter that was sensationalized in the Hearst newspapers. Okay, it's saying that your system failed. It was going from the Navy to something and through Vancouver, and
I didn't get that.
The 4 T's.
I didn't get that one put into the presentation. I didn't get that one put into the presentation yet. So we'll discuss it.
Fine.
We'll discuss it next week.
I'm excited about it.
I know you are. What did you call it? The Washington Zodiac? What you called it a name? You called the system a name.
At first, I wanted to call it "This is the stupid effing code," but it's supposed to be the Slumek mystery Dead Man's Curse gold letter between two prospectors. One of them is A.R. Brown, also nicknamed Crazy Brown, Volcanic Brown, and then from a deathbed person in San Francisco, using the San Francisco Examiner's brought up in there, W. Jack, and I swear I saw an enlarged S and then the O-N, and it says yours truly, and all this stuff that we recognize as the Zodiac code, a friend, dear friend, all capitalized. And I said, I know the system, and I send you an email. You're going to think I'm crazy myself. I'm
we'll get to that one. I was just more or less looking. you called it a particular name, and I can't think of what it was now, like either Washington Zodiac System, but it was from the early 1940s. Now, I want to remind everybody that we saw one of the original letters that we saw that was tacked to Bob Lord, and it was a New Orleans murder on the docks that had the Zodiac symbol on it, and it said he accidentally knew too much or something like that. And of course, that means that this group or this affiliation with these communications after the hits or the murders occur is something that has been going on for quite some time. And I want to say that was 1938, so that even predates this letter that you're talking about in 1942. But we'll get back to that one. Let's finish up with some of our like I expressed, Jimmy Carter has passed, and we'll start to see, hopefully, what Harriet says in these solves come to fruition, and this information start to come out in regards to this group. Now, I know that your solves have shown that the Zodiac Killer is consistently reaching out to presidents for payment and remedy for the monster he felt the government had created. We're talking things like MK Ultra, Manchurian candidate, hypnosis for hire, LSD and illicit drugs, the mob, syndicate, hitmen, political and corporate espionage, and of course, a serial killer. I did want to kind of talk just a few seconds about shadow banning. I just learned this particular statement, and it's something that I think that I have felt going on with YouTube for quite some time, and their algorithm being messed up. So I did a episode with David of San Joaquin Valley Transparency last week. Actually, sorry, this week on New Year's Eve. It was almost a 2-hour special where we just highlighted the most important evidence, I thought anyways, in regards to Jack being the suspect of the Zodiac killings. And he had discussed that he had played Dennis Kaufman's documentary that I had put up during November while I was out of the country. And he stated that he had the lowest views that he had ever seen on his show for quite some time once he played that particular documentary. And he felt he had been shadow banned. Also stating that while we're on the show, we of course have people who are attempting to go and actually subscribe to my YouTube channel. And while several were capable of doing it, we also saw several people indicating they were not allowed to subscribe, which absolutely blows my mind. I mean, the button's there, you can click it. Why isn't it subscribing? So again, that just goes to the suppression of the evidence that we're attempting to put out. I also received information from another YouTube follower who had indicated there was a connection between Rupert Murdoch. He was one of the owners of New Bedford Standard Times, which was the was part of the Stop the Forced Busing letter that we talked about last week. Now, the interesting part of that is that Rupert Murdoch goes on to be one of the biggest media magnates out there, owning Fox News and the Fox Entertainment Company. And he's in ownership with the New Bedford Standard Times with Dow Jones Company. I wanted to ask you, Harriet, Dow Jones Company is, I know that that's usually related to the stock market, but is that also related to like Dow Chemicals?
It sounds indirectly familiar. So, as you have Dow, you have the Dow Company, and then the Dow Jones Industrial Complex. That's the World Trade Center. I mean, there is a lot going on there. Okay,
right. So, and Rupert Murdoch is also some of the research, and we're going to talk about this later because there's a connection between Rupert Murdoch and John Walsh. And John Walsh, of course, ends up on America's Most Wanted, which is featured on the Fox channels. And Rupert Murdoch actually employs John Walsh. And we see that John Walsh will eventually get some letters in regards to his son being killed, which is going to happen. Yes, which is going to happen here shortly. Yeah. And of course, there's a lot of information evidently in this particular case, and that YouTube subscriber wants to do a podcast with me to make those connections between the Zodiac and John Walsh. So it's going to be extremely interesting as we move along and things start to heat up here. So let me get us right on. Last week we left off with Winovich, and his daughter was killed in a crosswalk, and not coincidentally, as we know that Harriet says she's in the hospital right now, you were also just hit in a crosswalk, correct?
Yeah, I'm like, I wake up and in the hospital, and they said, "You've been in a traffic collision." I said, "I don't have a car now." That's the first thing I remember saying. "Oh, tell me what happened." Okay.
But you still haven't even heard from the police.
No, this is getting stranger and stranger by the minute. So I just keep calling, leaving a voicemail. So
did they give you a name of an officer?
The officer?
Yeah, did they give you a name of an officer?
I have a name of the responding officer, and then I have a case number that I had to find online, by the way.
What, is Ukiah so busy that they can't respond to you? I mean, I don't get it. I didn't think Ukiah was a very large city.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find out more. But judging from my injuries, they said, I was drugged about 100, 150 feet in the sewer repair stuff. So,
you suffered some fractures and some broken bones and head injury and
definitely head injury, chip bones, and then the rest is gross. Okay, so we'll bypass that. All
right. Well, let's get back to Voinovich here.
Can I say this part?
Yeah.
I told you I've always wanted to grow a pair. So they got stuff coming out of the groin, and it looks like plastic ball sacks. So I've been a strong woman all my life. Now I've grown a pair twice.
I was going to say, it always crossed me as though you always had your own set. Either way.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But I was finishing off with Voinovich last week when I was talking about his daughter having been struck in a crosswalk and that he was in the middle of primaries for an election. This, of course, did not stop him. He ran. He did make office. And this is some continuation of some information I thought was interesting. Voinovich was considered shy, a rather low-key politician, a description he adopted himself. Once elected, he met with Ohio Governor James Rhodes to solicit the state government's help in clearing up the city's debts. Voinovich negotiated a debt repayment schedule, and in October 1980, with the state serving as guarantor, 8 local banks lent Cleveland $36.2 million, allowing the city to emerge from default. Still, the city's economy continued to decline and federal funding was cut. 2 weeks earlier, voters turned down another 5% of income tax increase. The opposition was led by Kucinich, who had been keeping a low profile since losing the election. Voinovich said he would resubmit the tax issue on the February ballot to avoid facing a deficit in 1981. That time, the voters approved the tax increase. By the time Voinovich was elected, Cleveland had become the butt of late-night comedians' jokes about the Cuyahoga River and Mayor Ralph Perk's hair catching on fire in separate incidences. And as only the major American city to go as the only major American city to go bankrupt. Voinovich took an aggressive approach. He reversed a defensive attitude projected by the Cleveland media going to war to save one of this country's greatest cities. Others soon jumped on board. For instance, the Smith Kramer Company, a local realty firm, tried to restore the city's former glory by running a series of ads with photographs of downtown Cleveland captioned, "Take another look, it's Cleveland." In May of 1981, the Plain Dealer, that's another one of the newspapers that insert was sent to by the Zodiac, sent its Sunday subscribers bumper stickers reading, "New York's the Big Apple, but Cleveland's a plum." The paper also passed out thousands of Cleveland's a plum buttons and ran a huge picture of publisher Thomas Vail with his smile, with a smiling Voinovich beside him, throwing out the first plum at a Yankee Indians game. Sportcaster Howard Cosell held the city during a baseball game, and Voinovich subsequently presented him with a key to the city. I don't know who Howard Cosell is. That's an actor, right?
I think it sounds familiar.
Oh, sportscaster. Sorry. All right.
Okay. That's fine. Okay.
I don't know anything about sports. I'm going to duck right on out of that. A survey showed 65% of residents of Greater Cleveland were satisfied with their life in the city, and that 57% claimed to be very satisfied even in 1978, a year of default. National poll found Detroit to be the city with the worst image, with New York City second and Cleveland fifth. The New Cleveland Campaign, a promotion agency formed in 1978, began sending out news releases promoting Cleveland's virtues and calculating reprints whenever it got a favorable story. But to show how much the new Cleveland had improved, it had to highlight how bad the old Cleveland was. In particular, it stressed the city's 1978 default of $15.5 million short-term loans from local banks, even though the New York City owed nearly 150 times as much when it received $2.3 billion federal bailout to avoid bankruptcy in 1975. So that's extremely interesting. I guess he's kind of coining himself for having pulled them up and out of default, or preventing a bankruptcy from having to happen. And not exactly sure how he plays into this and why why he would have been the subject or the target of the Zodiac stuff. But when I'm following the media, like I just finished watching the Son of Sam docu-series, watching Maury Terry, I think was his name. He was attempting to become a reporter, I suppose, if you will, but he wrote a great article on the assassination of Martin Luther King. And when he got back to New York and provided it to the newspaper to write, they absolutely trashed it, threw it into the garbage, and rewrote something, making it look like everything was absolutely fine and beautiful, even though the city where Martin Luther King had died was completely in shambles. There was riots going on, things were caught on fire, destruction just everywhere, as Maury described it. But that just goes to show you the media is only going to portray what they want you to see and hear. And that's kind of one of the things that Rupert Murdoch was touted for, is the fact that he was going to play the media however he wanted to, in order to facilitate whatever beliefs.
Like Hearst.
Exactly
Hearst.
like
Yellow
Hearst.
journalism. Sensationalized stories, make people think something's going on over to the left, when on to the right, other things are happening, messages being sent across. He seems to have taken off where Hearst took off, but he is no William Randolph Hearst, okay?
No, but William was dirty.
Randolph Hearst takes the cake.
Yeah, Hearst was dirty. I think one of the things I heard that he was quoted as saying is, if you get the pictures, I'll make the war. So basically telling an investigative journalist to get pictures of bad things, and then he would run these newspapers in order to push us into war. Absolutely disgusting. So more research on the newspaper companies that were in that particular insert is the Middletown Record, or Times Herald Record. And they actually, one of their prominent employees was Hunter Thompson, and the future creator of the Gonzo journalism. He actually was fired by an editor, but he was actually working at the Middletown Record at one point in time. And of course, I had somebody send me these letters. So what I'm looking at right now, Harriet, is the Hunter Thompson letters. Of course, says some extremely interesting things like, okay, here. So it's written to Ralph. I'm not sure who Ralph is. Okay, here it is. Ralph, and your filthy little art is nothing compared to the perfect truth and beauty of my story, which this all sounds to me very reminiscent of the Zodiac. And I'm not stating that the Zodiac wrote this. Is it possible that this was a writing that Hunter Thompson was asked to write on behalf of him? I have no clue, but it says, and by the way, I insist that you draw a small red heart on my arm, just in case some of the Times' more excitable readers miss the point. Did Jack have a red heart on his arm?
Exactly. Yes, he did. That's what I heard. And he said only his mom is worthy of a tattoo. So mom was in it, in the heart.
Gotcha. Well, it goes on to say, anyway, I want the original art of this one. I deserve it. Thank you. And by the way, I will sue you under the Official Secrets Act if anybody publishes that horrible, degenerate cartoon. The joke's over, Ralph. You've sucked on my back long enough. But thanks anyway for this rotten pansexual art. We'll be seeing it soon enough. Res ipsa locator. Love, Hunter S. Thompson. So I was sent these by somebody to compare to the Zodiac's writing, and I found several differences in regards to the writing. It does look like it's written with speed. It doesn't look like it's a manipulation of handwriting by any means. So it's likely that this is in fact written by Hunter Thompson, and it is on Hunter Thompson paper. But I thought it was interesting just to note some of these coincidences that were going on. So yeah, I said I'd actually show in my presentation, and this is from back in 2013, that this is significant because Jack had a small red heart tattoo on his arm next to his mother's name, Flova, which may have been a norm for World War II tattoos, but we're tracking a serial killer here, not a one-time war man. And did Jack show propensity to contact media, journalists, book writers, and movie makers? In the end now, I find that he has. All the way through the progression of all of these crimes, he has reached out to the media and journalists and book writers and movie makers trying to tell his story. So I'm wondering if this wasn't one of them. Go there. Oh, and then of course I had to put that next to one of Jack's pieces of paper because he actually had paper that was very similar to the Hunter S. Thompson, which has his name at the very top of it. And we can see it here on the presentation where he's written this letter to Dennis. Appears to be written on identical notepad paper. Oh, I also found it interesting that in one of the statements that Jack wrote in this letter to Dennis was "use guys," Y-O-U-S-E, which that's a mob term, right? Use guys.
Yeah.
See, I feel like I hear that all the time.
Reference. That would be more like a hint to, we have the Irishman linked to the mob for sure. So, use guys, wise guys. Okay.
Right. And in October 31st of 1997, which is when this particular Hunter Thompson letter is the era, Jack is still using the Nelda Street address. So laundering research on the Portland Telegram, Republican leaning to oppose the Oregonian, which was Democrat. Controlling both sides of the political stances to keep others out of the market, and could not locate the owner after 1931. But D.B. Cooper wrote to the Oregonian, and the Atlanta, Georgia child murderer included information about Portland Telegram. So that's why I brought this one up in particular, and we're going to hear a little bit about the Portland Telegram. The Telegram was founded in 1877 by Henry Piddock, who founded the Oregonian 16 years prior. His ownership connected the Telegram to the Oregonian. While the Oregonian was a solidly Republican paper, the Telegram tended Democratic in order to keep competitors out of the field. It is said to have dominated the afternoon news in Portland until the advent of the Oregon Journal in 1902. Beginning in the 1850s and 60s, Oregon journalism was characterized by bitter editorial attacks among competing newspaper publishers, a condition referred to as the Oregon style of journalism. A.C. McDonald, one of the owners of the Telegram Publishing Company, was killed in a duel with James K. Mercer, assistant editor of the Portland Bee, over an editorial dispute in 1878. Could you imagine if we could still handle things that way these days?
I think there was a duel in San Francisco too. And then I think the amicably settled things in the 19th century. They tried to shoot somebody with the duel, and hey, it's wild, wild west, even in the major cities then.
Well, we know D.B. Cooper contacted the Oregonian, but those letters were actually coming out of the California area. And I pretty much already presented that information to everybody to show them that this was likely being done by somebody who lived in California. But you mentioned who was the gentleman that was running the Oregonian? You mentioned his involvement.
That is Bill Hilliard. He was making history as the first. And he would say, "I'm not African American. I've been born here in America. My family's one. I'm just a colored guy." And of course, you couldn't say colored, but he was the one saying, "I'm colored." I'm not.
Well, I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue with the last description because I think you'll find it interesting. It says the paper had a high degree of turnover in its leadership in the first decade. One consistent presence was Catherine Amanda Coburn, sister of Harvey W. Scott and Abigail Scott Dunaway, who ran the editorial page from 1883 to 1888 when she left for the Oregonian. Richard D. Cannon arrived as editor in 1888 and was credited with improving society and sports coverage. He left the paper in early 1890s but returned in 1904. Other editors include J.B. Fithian and S.A. Moreland. Lumberman John E. and L.R. Wheeler bought the paper in 1914. The Telegram Building, now a historic landmark, was built during the tenure. Several unpopular campaigns, including one against the Ku Klux Klan, brought the paper into bankruptcy. In 1922, an East Oregonian editorial accused the Telegram of opposing the interests of Eastern Oregon and meddling more than other Portland papers in electoral politics. C.H. Brockhagen bought the paper and was the publisher from 1927 until 1931 merger with the News. According to Oregon newspaper historian George Turnbull, following the merger, the character of the consolidated paper reflected the news more than
my friend is doing a podcast. I'm still here. Okay. Shall I mute myself for a minute? Okay.
Do you need
to? Hear you, so,
okay.
I can mute myself for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So basically it says, following the merger, the character of the consolidated paper reflected the news more than the Telegram, though the Telegram provided a number of valuable staff members. So obviously, again, we've got newspaper outlets that are fiddling around with politics. Of course, they're going to present bad information, whether true or not. And then probably push good information for the politician that they're looking to have everybody back. So again, they're just forming our thoughts and desires for us. The research on the Reading Eagle carried the Dick Tracy comics that we know that the Zodiac used. And I want to remind everybody, those comics had not actively been published to the public at the time that the Zodiac used them. And of course, the Zodiac referred to that unpublished comic strip created by Dick Tracy with the originating ties to Chicago, Illinois. So that kind of makes everything full circle here. Again, this is one of the newspapers, the Reading Eagle, that the insert for the forced busing letter from the Zodiac was sent out to. And it says just a small bit about this Reading Eagle was the Sunday edition. For many years, the Sunday Reading Eagle featured a banner on its Sunday comics section saying biggest comics section in the land, running over 50 features until the late 1980s and occupying 2 sections until 1995. It carried half pages of Prince Valiant, Hagar the Horrible, and Tarzan, as well as smaller versions of Dick Tracy, the Phantom. I like to bring up the Phantom because we've seen the Phantom used in many of the communications, and many popular humor strips. On July 8, 2018, however, it followed the path of most dwindling American newspapers and reduced the size of its comic section and the strips it carries. That brings us to our first solve. So I'm not sure if you're still with us there, Harriet. I know you said you'd be listening in. This was your solve to the forced busing letter, the Atlanta, Georgia child killer letter, which stated, stop forced busing before I kill 3 more Black boys in March. Are you there with us, Harriet? Well, now you got to figure out how to unmute yourself.
Okay, what was that again? I am muted.
Okay, so I have up the forced busing solve. Do you have that one to refer to?
No, but I know what it says. It's something about it's Jowers. Because I saw the one that
Do you want me to read it
online that somebody. Yeah, go ahead, because it's referring to who the real killers behind Martin Luther King is, which is involving a witness. Now keep going.
It says the 3 Balistrieri SPA Chicago mob goons, Brian C. Hartnell, Jowers, Paul Lee Stein, killed Martin Luther King.
Yes. And guess what? It's years later, they actually go to trial to with something that had to do with Janet Reno, early 1990s. So amazing.
When was Martin Luther King killed? 68?
Yeah. So, and the King family wanted some kind of justice. They said, we hear rumors that there are other people involved.
And what is SPA?
So, what was that?
What is SPA?
FB?
No,
FB is
SPA.
Frankfurt. SB?
S
Oh
is
my
in
God!
Sam,
I
P
think
is in Paul,
it's
A
the
is in
day
Apple.
that I think it's the day spa that was associated with stuff going on in Vegas. So they were running these links, money laundering, etc. It's the
Okay,
stuff
so
I
I
think
should have
you
been
see in
saying
one of
the
the movies.
spa. I should have been saying the
The
spa then,
spa.
not SPA.
Okay, yeah, it's the spa. Okay, because
The
they
Three
were doing funny
Balustrade
things using.
Spa. Okay.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
a tie back to Chicago. So here we go again. Dick Tracy ties back to Chicago. Zodiac ties back to Chicago. Forced busing letter ties back to Chicago based on your solve. And I'm going to just read what you put in underneath this. It says people think that the note which was sent and is in the FBI files that the word forced is an F, but looking closely, it appears to be more like a part of a mere J symbol in Jack's codes. The spa, not far from Vegas, was the heart of a 1960s to 1980s scandal that involved 7-day Adventists. Lloyd Jowers is a man named in a trial involving the death of MLK in 1990s. In the 1969 Zodiac codes, Jack is saying he's avenging MLK. He attacks Brian Hartnell, who at the time was a Seventh-day Adventist and lives. His friend Cecilia Shepard, from whom Jack killed, both were students of Seventh-day Adventist Pacific Union College. She is buried in St. Helena, California. Anything you wanted to add?
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, anything you want to add to that?
No, yeah, there is. Okay, I'm learning all these years later they were not supposed to kill Catholics, and it was a Catholic hospital, the Queen of the Valley, that saved Brian Hartnell. So that actually, in my invariable opinion, saved him, because they said, okay, a Catholic hospital saved him. We are not to do or try anything again. That's my opinion. So, yeah. So he may have been Seventh-day Adventist and all this other crap allegedly going on, but the hospital saved him. And so they said, okay, we'll work and do something else.
Right.
So
now,
yeah,
I did in my research to put together the 10 most pieces of important pieces of evidence on Jack for the podcast with San Joaquin Valley Transparency. I did find a new picture of Jack, which I thought was extremely interesting. I mean, good Lord, as many times as I look at all his different pictures throughout the time, it's like he changes almost from one year to the next. He looks completely different. But I did go ahead and throw that picture up next to the Zodiac composites for the purpose of being able to show this new picture. And again, we see a very good likeness. We see the widow's peak. We see that hair that is brushed backwards, very short on the sides, a little bit taller on the top, and again, just another likeness. So either way, during that entire time frame, Jack was basically an epitome or a lookalike of these composites. That brings us to the. Go ahead.
I was going to say he's definitely not Arthur Lee Allen. Bald-headed, fat, all that stuff. I mean, come on, people keep on insisting. It's Arthur Lee Allen. He looks like he looks like Humpty Dumpty. That's not.
One of the commenters on the podcast that I did on Tuesday had mentioned that, but Jack wasn't big and burly. Jack wasn't a big guy. He was rather thin. And of course, David threw up the picture of him, Jack, standing with Nora in front of the two-door blue Chevy Impala. I'm sorry, that was the Biscayne. And you can see that Jack has that belly that hangs over the pants, just as was described by Brian Hartnell in the Lake Berryessa attack. And of course, he was a big boy. So I thought it was interesting that they see his face and think that he's thin, but when you see his body, it's a completely different story. So we left off on the Hello, It's Me letter on March 8th of 1981. It was mailed in Atlanta, Georgia to the WXIA TV channel 11, NBC. Now, looking up, or the letter itself says, "Hello, it's me. Haven't you people figured out who is killing these little people yet? I'll give you a hint. I used to be in San Francisco. I used to stalk women, but I like to kill children now. At all my victims' bodies, I have left certain clues, but I guess it's too much for you rebels to handle. So I guess I'll have to tell you. I don't know what this word is. I'll to kill children because they are so easy to pick off. By the way, if you still have letters, that's not the word I was trying to say, but thank you. By the way, if you still have letters from the other murders, I am not writing in the same handwriting. And last week we were talking about how Jack could write with both hands based on what Dennis stated. So it actually kind of plays into the fact that if he's ambidextrous and he shows Jack or Dennis that he can write with his opposite non-dominant hand, then we have a purpose for him stating that I'm not writing in the same handwriting. The 1611 Peachtree Street, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia, 30308 turns out to have been a major media center where the WXIA TV was located, Channel 11 affiliate of ABC, then NBC, aka now Comcast. Pacific and Southern Broadcasting, Inc. purchased WXIA from Fairbanks and then were taken over by Combined Communications, who then was bought by the Gannett Company. And we're going to hear more about Gannett. I think we already talked a little bit about Gannett as far as one of the owners to these media corporations that was included in that insert. I also wanted, I think that the Scorpion letters to John Walsh also started out with the word hello at one point, correct? Or hi? It was hi, right?
Yeah, hi, remember me. Yeah, hi,
yes.
Remember me, you know. Yeah.
Again, the same MO in communications. So what I wanted to point out about this letter, yes.
Can I say something really quick about that had the sideways D's embedded in there, like the Black Dahlia communications, where you saw the V sideways with the H. So I found a couple of those in there. I said, so this is reference that, you know, hello, remember me? I am happen to do with Black Dahlia too. Okay, so anyway.
So some of the things I'll point out about this particular letter, it's first the letter out of Atlanta went to KHJ TV in Los Angeles, California. The letter itself stating, hello, it's me, is equal to hi, remember me of the John Walsh letters, boo, it's me of the Tim Miller letter, and Groucho Christmas card, guess who? Haven't you people is very Zodiac 101. Used to be in San Francisco. We know that again is the Zodiac. Used to stalk women. Again, the Zodiac, and all over the U.S. Certain clues. Now, the Zodiac has a natural taunt of having left certain clues out, and pick off, which was also a Zodiac term for the school bus action. The envelope, the small Zodiac symbol, represents the return address. Left side of the envelope has 2 hole punches with the letters @kid between them. Per Dewhurst's book, Zodiac murders once again come to a stop. So we know that we're not getting any action over here in California while these murders are happening over here in Atlanta, Georgia. 1981, Jack's son, and I think I'm not due to be to this yet. I think, we are in 1981. Jack's son, Barry, dies at age 28 due to pneumonia resulting from liver disease. Now, as far as this letter is concerned, this is what the FOIA file has to say about it when it was sent off to Quantico to have it examined in comparison to the other Zodiac letters. It says the result of the examination, it could not be determined whether the writer of the Zodiac letters in the case Zodiac extortion prepared the question writing on specimens Q27 and Q28, which is the hello, it's me letter, because of distortion and unexplained variations. While a definite conclusion could not be reached in this examination, some characteristics were noted which indicated that the writer of the Zodiac letters should not be eliminated as a possible suspect in the preparation of specimens Q27 and Q28. And I like that they say couldn't be eliminated, but says no watermarks, indented writing, or other features were found on specimens Q27 and Q28, which would be of value in determining the source of these specimens. Specimen Q27 and Q28 were photographed and will be returned with the fingerprint report. The results of the authorship identification examination will also be furnished separately. they went on to say, let's see here. This is Williamsport, Pennsylvania, bearing a pre-printed address. You shall die. Oh, this is a completely different letter. Bureau original letter from television station, The FBI laboratories requested to compare this letter with any other letters on file from the Zodiac killer responsible for the string of unsolved murders in San Francisco in the early and mid 1970s. If letters are on file, compare handwriting to see if they are one and the same. I thought that I had more. So I guess basically the gist of it is, while they're stating they couldn't have a definite conclusion, that the Zodiac could not be excluded and should not be excluded from this particular letter. And we did explain, obviously, if we're looking at the differences as it states, that the has distortion and unexplained variations could be simply explained by the fact that he changed hands. The main characteristics that we would be looking at in someone's writing would still be there even if they swapped hands. It's just going to be a little less mature of a handwriting. It's going to be a little more wobbly, like we see in the Hello, It's Me letter, because it hasn't been honed in and it hasn't been used near as much as the dominant hand has. So that could be the explanation, is that he just simply swapped hands to do that writing.
Well, I found an embedded accent. I found a very typical Zodiac trait of what looks like elongated, like T shape, but it's an embedded camouflaged X in there. So that could also
and where
be
did you find that at?
Variations. It's in one of the words, hello, it's me, remember me, that, or so instead of it
being the haven't you people. Yeah, haven't has an X.
So I said, okay, there's an X there, and it worked perfectly because then I needed X for Nixon. Anyways, it ended up in my invariable view of facsimile too, and he's bypassing, even though Carter's no longer president, he's bypassing, in his words, shitty President Reagan. I'm sorry. He's supposed to be. He's supposed to be, to make that long story short, I don't know if you have the salt there, they're saying there was a change of plans in the execute order that Carter hoped for, and in a matter of words, being Catholic, I understand there were 3 popes that year, so the third pope changes the plans. They save Christopher Bush, and they save the King family member, the daughter. They eventually marry, blah, blah, blah. And then they are to go get the Nazis, like was ordered. And then he's saying that I think it's Cole is to die. The one who picked kids off as they were coming off the boxcars in Nazi Europe. Anyways, then it goes on to say, because he's now with the Holy See, and the kind, gentle Pope wishes you to ask shitty President Reagan to Are
you reading something right now?
No, I'm right here. So what is it?
I'm asking, are you reading a solve or something right now?
No, I got that so much in my head. It's just funny that he's saying he's with the Holy See, the kind, gentle Pope is.
I know, but wait, I haven't gotten to those solves yet, so that's why I'm saying I'm confused. Okay. While you're quoting those, we're getting to it. We're almost there. I wanted to also mention on June 5th of 1981. Were you aware of a letter that was written, postmarked Williamsport, Pennsylvania, bearing the it doesn't tell me what the address was, but it started out, "You shall die, I'm going." Have you seen this letter? This was
no, I haven't. So hopefully it's not going to be take a deep breath when I see the envelope and see 4
right. Well, I don't see it, so I'm not sure where I got this particular image, but it looks like it came off of Photo Bucket. It's a intel dated June 5th, 1981, from the Federal Bureau of Investigation in regards to AGCK, which is the Atlanta, Georgia child killers case. And they're calling it a kidnapping. I mean, these kids are being murdered and you're calling it a kidnapping. I don't understand. The Zodiac was also murdering and they called it extortion. So they know something we don't know clearly. But it's stating that this particular letter, writing Q90 and 91 was compared with the question writing on previously received letters in this case, but no positive association between this letter and the previous submitted material could be established. It is noted, however, the Q33 envelope is a business reply envelope of the Danbury Mint, Norwalk, Connecticut. Let's see. I just got sidetracked. Norwalk, Connecticut, and the Q90 envelope is also a business reply envelope. And we do know that the Zodiac used business reply pieces, especially when he mailed out to Sacramento Bee and other places like that, correct?
Exactly. Yes. I remember doing that one. Take a deep breath when I did that one.
Well, I also wanted to point out here is that I
feel like I'm jumping down into the deep sea when I see these things, and I have to take a deep breath, and I say, this is going to be a couple weeks.
Well, I'm hoping to get you to this solve on this particular communication here really quick, but I have one more piece of information I want to go over before we get to that, and that is the fact that I failed to mention last week while talking to David on the podcast about the evidence with Jack when he asked what was inside the green metal box that had the earrings and the cut pieces of rope, the broken knife that Dennis believed was used in Sherry Joe Bates, and another knife, is that I forgot to mention that the film, the negatives, the undeveloped rolls of film that were found inside of that box that ended up containing the negatives for Black Dahlia's, what we believe is Black Dahlia mid-torture. This particular picture that I'm showing on the screen right now was also off of those rolls of undeveloped film that was inside of that box. And we see what looks like a ball cap that's laying next to a very odd, I'm going to say, splattering of blood, almost as if this hat was knocked off when somebody was beat, hit, killed. I don't know. But when I look at it, it's from the University of Las Vegas, which their mascot is Rebels. And I thought that was interesting to put in here because while we have no relation for why this picture was on this roll of film, it certainly seemed very out of place in considering the other pictures that were found on it. But if you take note in that last letter, it says, I guess it's too much for you rebels to handle. And then we've got this picture of the UNLV rebels hat laying on the ground next to an ominous puddle of what looks to be blood. Very, very creepy. And I haven't been able to find anybody in 1981 that had died in Las Vegas, but I'm sure there's a lot of them we don't know about. That's just mob territory, of course. So WXIA said to have left their studios at the Peachtree address, and on March 17th of 1981, the FBI is requested to examine original letter in the Atlanta, Georgia cases by Maryland State Police Department. So now they are bringing it in. They themselves believe that the Zodiac is responsible and want these letters cross-compared. That brings us to March 13th of 1981, Timothy Hill in Atlanta, the last murder and letter that Georgia will see from this serial killer. And the camping trips where Jack would disappear are over. I bet that Dennis would never have believed that I made this connection to serial killers. And here he is giving Jack the opportunity to sneak off to do them. So March 18th, 1981, there's a cable from the FBI FOIA files that indicates that the Zodiac killer cannot be excluded. We just spoke about that. And just like the Atlanta, Georgia child killer comes to a complete halt, and we don't see any more children that are kidnapped and killed. That brings us to the Hello, It's Me solve from you, Harriet. Do you have that to read?
Give me a few seconds, but do you have it?
Harriet?
It's pretty. Can you hear me okay?
We only got about 2 minutes left here, so I don't know if we're going to make it to the solve if you're not. Oh, we got 1 minute left, it looks like.
Well, I know basically what the solve is saying, that
Harriet,
that there was a change of plan. Yeah, can you hear me?
She's talking.
Oh my God. Can you hear me okay?
Hear
her. Just try to read it.
Did I lose my sound?
It's pretty lengthy. Yeah, it's pretty lengthy. There was a change of plan.
I can't hear anything. Huh.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. I know I can hear you.
Huh. Oh my goodness.
You have the solve up, that's the most important thing.
I don't know what happened. I've lost my sound.
You've lost your sound. How coincidental. Well, rest
Can
in
you
peace,
hear me, Juan?
Sure.
Huh. Well, we are down and out of time now. So I guess if everybody can still hear me, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Happy New Year once again to everybody out there. And I hope you stay safe. We'll see you next Friday.